Okay, this is a reaction video. This is another one from Passport 2. Please click like, share, and subscribe for them, and like, share, and subscribe for me as well. And this is the shocking truth about Germans and nudity. Well, I'm kind of curious about this myself. I've been to Germany. I know Americans have a preconceived notions about nudity in Europe in general, but let's see what he has to say.
Today, I'm going to talk about a side of Germany that contradicts everything Americans think about this buttoned up and conservative country, so buckle in because it's about to get a little wild.
Again, there are preconceived notions about it, about if you've never been to the United States, what we think about it, and what Europeans in general think about it, specifically Germany. And my nephew just got back from Spain and France, and he was on a boat, and they stopped at a place where people could go jump in and swim. And I don't know why he recorded this, but some guy, I guess it was a German guy, that's according to him, stripped off all of his clothes and jumped in naked. I don't know if anybody else did the same thing, but this guy definitely did because he has video proof of it. And I don't know why he would keep that to show it to us, but he did. But that is what it is. But yeah, there is definitely nobody in the United States would ever do that. If we were out on a lake or something like that, and they said we'll be swimming in certain parts of the lake, and we got to the area where you can go swim, I can't think of a single American that would just strip down completely nude and jump into the lake. Not sure they would even think about it, but who knows? And I realize not every German would do that, and not every, it is.
Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. I am Donnie, and along with my wife Aubrey, we are two Americans currently living in Germany and sharing all of our experiences living and traveling throughout Europe. If there is one cultural difference that we get some of the most comments about, it is along the lines of, I will never understand how a naked body is so offensive in the US. Of course, on the flip side,
it's not necessarily offensive. I mean, just because Americans generally don't do it doesn't mean we find it offensive. I mean, I certainly don't find it offensive. I don't do it, but I don't find it offensive if somebody else wants to. That's their business.
In the US, there are all kinds of jokes and stereotypes made about the looseness with Europeans and exposing their bodies.
See, when I remember getting off the train in Frankfurt, and there was a poster of a naked man, and it was an advertisement, okay? And that's something you just don't see in the United States. But when you're there, that's what they do. So hey.
And Kathy Ireland signed on as the official spokesbabe of Dunder Mifflin.
No kidding.
Yeah, in the European billboard, she's going to be topless.
Wow.
But to be honest, when Americans make these jokes, Germany is almost never the country they are thinking of or
they're usually thinking of France, I think.
Referring to. And in fact, in many ways, somehow with Germany being one of the most free with nudity is one of the biggest kept secrets, and Americans don't realize how big part of German culture it actually is. But after nearly 3 years in Germany and observing this culture from the inside, we feel like we are finally ready to share with you our biggest findings and in some cases, shocks pertaining to nudity in Germany. So that is exactly what we are going to talk about today in our video. The naked truth. Germany, uncouth, or fountain of youth?
I do remember when I was coming back from Cologne, the train slowed down a bit, and I remember looking, you could see through the trees, there was a lake. It was, I don't forget how far outside of Cologne where there was like a lake, and there were a bunch of naked people around it. Okay, and that was the only time I really encountered people walking around naked. We didn't go to any beaches or anything like that when we were in Germany. We were mostly inside or any lakes, anything like that. We were mostly inside the country. But you did see commercials which had nudity. You did see nudity on TV a little bit. But that was really it, the only thing that I saw when I was there.
So let me first clarify our specific perspective on this subject so you can understand where our observations are coming from. We are originally from a state in the southern US called Oklahoma and now live in the southwestern German state of Rhineland-Pfalz. And both of these places have their own unique subcultures that may not be representative of the two countries as a whole. In particular, Oklahoma is so deep in the US Bible Belt that some even refer to it as the belt buckle of the Bible.
if you talk about the United States, and it's something that's important to know, and I'm sure they have this over in Europe as well, different cultures. There are certain areas of the country where certain things um, are more acceptable than in others. And in the Bible Belt, which is what he's talking about, is I'm not saying everybody is religious and walks around as Puritans or anything like that, but there are certain things that are frowned upon in the Bible Belt. Okay, and the Bible Belt is just to the south of me.
Belt. So I definitely admit that our experiences are heavily influenced by this influence, which will influence what I talk about today in contrast to Germany's influence on our influences. However, nudity isn't something that we haven't had any experience with at all, as weird of a sentence as that is. For example, Aubrey and I both are artists, and art was something I even minored in university, and with this interest, we both have had quite a bit of experience drawing from nude models, for example. So with that, in our living in Germany for nearly 3 years, we kind of can see both cultures' perspectives. But let me know your experiences with the things I talk about in the comments below, and let's just remember, just because one place does something one way and another place does it another way doesn't always mean there are rights and wrongs.
And I know that he says that in some of his videos, and that's something we should all accept, is that, look, just because Germany does it one way and the United States does it another, doesn't mean one way is right and one way is wrong. It just means it is what it is. That's how things happen. And when in Rome, as I say, when in Rome, do what the Romans do.
Maybe just simply different ways of doing things and looking at things. Now, I have talked to countless Americans who, like I have mentioned, do not realize that Germany has a nudist culture like we didn't before traveling to Germany. So we first need to start off by covering the German acronym FKK and what it means to Germany. FKK stands for Freie Körperkultur, which directly translated is free body culture, and is loosely pretty similar to what Americans know as nudism or naturism. A German writer wrote an article for CNN in 2018 to help explain and clarify the history of nudity, specifically nudism, in his nation, and summed up very well the perception of Germany in contrast with the actual situation in Germany like this. Nudism is traditionally popular in Germany, a country considered buttoned up and conservative compared with, let's say, Italy. Forget sausages and beer, the sign of true Germanness is publicly disrobing with absolutely zero self-consciousness. In fact, in many ways, Germany led the way for this idea of Europeans and their passion for nudity by influencing the rest of the continent with their long history of nudist acceptance, according to this article. To briefly sum up this history, German nudism has its roots starting in the late 19th century when nudity and sunbathing was thought to be a cure for various diseases. In 1920, while the rest of Europe was still getting feverish over the sight of an exposed ankle, Germany established its first nude beach on the island of Sylt. The Nazis very briefly tried to curtail nudism in Germany before softening their own rules, and during the divide into East and West Germany, FKK became even more widely popular in Eastern Germany as it was viewed as a way of expressing oneself and escaping the uniforms and conformity.
Well, there's an interesting topic, what he just said earlier, nudism and the Nazis, but yeah, a lot of this doesn't surprise me a whole lot.
Of the communists. When West Germans started to holiday all over Europe, they brought their penchant for letting it all hang out with them. Nude resorts began opening in France in the 1950s, followed by increasingly popular FKK ventures in Yugoslavia and on the Baltic Sea. Today, Germans are typically the most commonly seen nationality at European nude beaches. Now, are all Germans nudists? Of course not. Do all Germans get naked in public places at least a couple of times a year? Probably still no. And just like in the US where we have apple pie and baseball and the 4th of July at our core, would every German say that getting naked is one of the most important aspects of their culture? Probably also not. And in fact, the CNN article...
See, I think most, here's the thing. My mother told me about this. She was at a park in Germany when she was in the mid-60s. And there was a couple who were just looking to change it to a bathing suit, okay? Now, in the United States, if you show up, you would show up in your bathing suit, okay? Well, they showed up in their clothes and they had their bathing. They just shut down and just put on their bathing suit right then and there, okay? It wasn't like they were nudists, whether they walk around naked, but they just took off all their clothes and put on it right there, as it was no big deal. And it probably wasn't that big of a deal, but in the United States, you just don't see things like that. And again, that comes down to personal preference. I generally don't have a problem with anybody doing that. If that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. it doesn't necessarily surprise me a whole lot about a lot of what's going on in this video because people have different opinions, and one way is just one way they do it versus the other.
Goes on to say, most young people are fine with sunbathing topless in parks and pools, and like me have no qualms whatsoever with undressing for the sauna. But the ideals of the German nudist movement are slowly dying away. But there is no denying the historical influence this culture has had on Germany and how much bigger of a part it plays in German culture than in many cultures around the world.
I mean, think about this. In the United States, you'll have a girl go, and I never understood, she'll go to the beach in a bikini, which is basically, cover the top, cover the bottom, perfectly fine. But if you go to her house and she's wearing her bra and undies, which is essentially the same thing as a bikini, it's just undergarments, she'll cover up, okay? It's okay out on the beach to be dressed like that where everybody can see you. But if you're in your house and you're basically the same outfit, just different different way of doing it, just different garments, which basically do the same thing, I got to cover up. It's something I've never really understood.
And in this video, I do not want to overstate the importance of FKK and make you think that there are just naked people walking the streets of Germany.
And there are not naked people walking the streets of Germany.
But I also do not want to understate how fairly big of a deal this is to German culture. Earlier, I mentioned how FKK can be loosely understood as naturism or nudism by Americans, but what they are imagining with these words isn't totally accurate based on what they mean in the US. For an American like us, hearing nudism conjures up thoughts of secluded secret beaches or resorts where nobody else is around and where one can get naked where nobody would see unless they are part of this lifestyle and also take.
Yeah, there are nudist places in the United States where you can go and people walk around naked all the time. There is a culture that does exist in the United States.
Part. However, in Germany, FKK is much more accepted of a cultural thing, and getting naked in public is not
which is what I just mentioned with my mom's son.
Always restricted to just areas marked for FKK that are far away from the public eye. Walk through the English Garden in Munich, which is similar to Central Park in New York City.
And yeah, if you look at the people here, I don't know if you can see it very well. Everybody here, for all intents and purposes, is in their bathing suits, loose clothes, but they're not walking around naked. But my guess is that this is similar to what my mother told me, that if some of the people who showed up there, who are in their bathing suits, may have stripped down to get instead of going to a locker room or something like that to do that.
And don't be surprised if you come across a sunbather sporting nothing more than a hat and a newspaper. Or a very rare occurrence that recently happened to one of our American friends who decided to go on a hike in a nearby forest where she came across a German hiker who was sporting nothing more than just hiking boots, a hat, and a backpack. In particular, in Eastern Germany, because of the history I mentioned from when this country was split, you will still find a very strong FKK culture, and many lakes will have a much stronger presence of nude sunbathers and swimmers than you would find in Western Germany. Now, you can't just strip off anywhere you want in Germany, and you can receive very minor penalties in certain public situations, but in many places where a person is just lying sunbathing, not bothering anybody, Germans don't mind or not offended. In fact, one of the biggest news stories right now as we enter into the summer swimming season, one German city, Göttingen, has just decided to become the first city in Germany to allow all bathers to swim topless in their public pools at weekends.
Obviously, this is November when I'm redoing this video, so this was obviously prior to that, but that's interesting.
However, they aren't going to allow topless swimmers during the weekdays due to weekday school swimming lessons. When I first came to Germany in 2014 as a junior in college participating in a study abroad program, I was just like most Americans and was completely unaware of this nudity culture, and it wasn't until dinner one night with my German host family I was living with that I was introduced to this world. No, there was no nudity at the dinner table, but as we recapped what we did all that day, my host mom told me that she went to the sauna that day. For most Americans, when we hear the word sauna, we think of the sauna at an old YMCA gym. So when she said this,
yeah, you think of a sauna, you went to the sauna and okay, I don't know what I'd think if my parents said they went to the sauna, or nobody told me they went to the sauna.
I didn't immediately think much of it because I just thought it meant she went to the gym and sat in the women's sauna. That was until my host family all explained that saunas in Germany are 100% nude and co-ed, and this was not at a gym at all. Now, some German gyms also have saunas like the one that we are members of, and we talked all about that in our video about the differences between German and American gyms. However, what they described to me is basically what Americans would call a spa that are filled with many assorted different types of saunas where Germans go to spend many hours or a full day to relax, fully nude and co-ed. These often have pools, outdoor areas for sunbathing, cafes, and other things to help one relax. And Germans take their sauna culture very seriously. So seriously, actually, that there's a famous unverified story that while the Berlin Wall was falling, former Chancellor Angela Merkel first had to go to her weekly sauna before going to the historic occasion. To briefly answer...
Yeah, there was once somebody who told me that there was a photo of Angela Merkel when she was a young girl walking nude or nude at like a lake or something like that. I never looked it up. I didn't do the research on it, but I heard about that. But it wouldn't surprise me if she's a German. It's a part of her culture, so if she wanted to, more power to her.
A couple of the biggest questions foreigners have when they find out about new German saunas. 1, why are they naked? And 2, why aren't they split between men and women?
And again, it goes with the culture. I mean, you don't go to the sauna to have a sexual encounter. It looks like you go there to rest and relax, and you want to be comfortable the whole time. And if it just so happens that everybody is not wearing any clothes, why should you? I understand where the question comes from. I know a lot of people who would ask those questions, but to me, it's their part of the culture. In the United States, if you went to a sauna or went to someplace that I don't know any places like that, you probably wouldn't do that, and you wouldn't have to ask that question. But in Germany and Europe, it's a little bit different.
Why can't you wear a swimsuit? Why? Says who? Like, what is the difference? There's zero difference in the benefits of it. It's some cultural thing?
So first, there are a couple of reasons for them being naked, according to saunaoffen.at. Bathing suits, which are often made of synthetic materials, can emit fumes in the heat, which is not particularly pleasant for those sweating with you, and can even be harmful to your health. And because clothing prevents the effect of the sauna, namely sweating and evaporation, and thus the body's own cooling, by collecting sweat in the swimwear. The dripping wet clothes also provide a prime breeding ground for bacteria and can possibly...
And probably there's another reason is some people don't like their body naked. They don't think their body looks as good naked as it does with clothes on. And, maybe they look out of shape and so forth. And, what you would say in that situation is, it's not like everybody who goes to these places are perfect 10. A lot of people, bodies are different sizes and shapes. It's about body. I've heard the word body acceptance. That's really what it's all about, is going there, and you're not there to oogle girls or oogle guys and go, oh my God. You're just there to relax, live your own life. Okay, they may be looking at you, but you're looking at them. They're in the same state that you are. So I don't have a problem with it.
Lead to infections. And as to why they aren't divided by gender, the reason for this normally simply is answered by saying, because the human body is just that to Germans, a human body, and everybody has one, so men and women being mixed isn't an issue or sexualized for them.
And another reason is, look, if you say you go there with your wife or your girlfriend or something, you want to be with them. You want to experience that with them. You don't want to be separated. They're over there, I'm over here. You may not know anybody over there. She may not know anybody there. You may not. You're by yourself. You want to experience this together. Now, if you go by yourself, that's one thing. But if you go as a couple, you want to experience it together. You want to enjoy each other's company while you're doing it.
However, most saunas will still offer a women's only day at least once a week. One of the biggest differences between Germany and the US and their acceptance of the naked body is whether or not we look at the context of the nudity.
And that's just what I just said about body acceptance. Not everybody's going to have the greatest looking body known to mankind or womankind. And so, you just show up as you are and just accept who you are.
In Germany, context is everything. For example, are people just sweating out in a sauna? Then there is nothing sexual there, so there is no problem. However, if someone is acting in some form of a sex act and nude, then this should be censored. This is in contrast to the US, where Americans simply see a naked body and makes no distinction on what the context is. Nudity is just simply nudity and should be censored to them. Another great example of the different cultures of acceptance of nudity is what is allowed on general television in both countries. Now, without getting too far into the weeds of the complicated FCC regulations in the US or censorship norms in Germany, and almost purely based on...
And to be fair, in the FCC, it's kind of it's not as restrictive as it used to be. There's a lot of TV shows you can get on regular cable which do have swearing and nudity on them.
Our observations that got us into looking into this in the first place, it is not entirely uncommon to be flipping through regular German television and come across a couple of naked bodies, unlike in the US where you would never...
Which is something what I mentioned. I saw nudity in commercials. There was a commercial with a guy, and he's with those guys in the shower. It shows their naked rear ends, and a bar of soap falls on the ground, and they're kicking around like they're having a soccer game in the shower. And I think it was a beer commercial, actually, if I remember correctly.
See that on normal television channels. For example,
I could be wrong on that. It's been a long time.
We were just recently watching TV at lunch, and a German channel advertised a movie that would be airing that evening, and we saw a naked body from behind, as well as a woman in a bathtub with very brief and not totally clear topless nudity, and Aubrey just said, wait, am I seeing a butt and boobs in the middle of the day? In Germany, there is a non-government association that helps work with stations on what should or should not air, or when nudity is allowed on TV at any time that is not sexual in nature. For example, showing fully nude people inside of a sauna sweating it out as part of a news story on a new sauna may be seen at any hour. After 8 p.m., there can be sexual scenes or other types of nudity determined acceptable for 12 years and older. After 10 p.m., it can become more explicit, with some channels even airing soft pornography or explicit commercials for risque phone call services, and I'll just leave it at that. In the US, it is a government agency, the FCC, that determines what should be allowed, and typically simply just the existence of nudity is enough to censor it, as these are deemed unsuitable for all audiences no matter the context.
In the mid 1990s or early 1990s, where it was a show came on in the United States called NYPD Blue, which showed bare behinds, and it showed men and female, and it had a disclaimer before it. But if you go on now a lot of shows are streaming in the United States. Well, I'm sure they are in Germany, and they're a little bit more liberal, like on Netflix and Hulu and shows like that. But there are also channels in the United States like FX, and there was a show, I think it was on FX, called The Americans, which featured quite a bit of nudity on that show. And the FCC isn't as a big a deal as it used to be.
Now, I will say that in general, this idea of looking at the context of things rather than just blatant censoring can kind of make sense to me. However, one thing that does confuse me is one of the more shocking things that we did not expect, and that is how pornographic magazines are allowed to be displayed in extremely obvious spots in places like grocery.
Yeah, when I was at, I used to get up in the morning in Frankfurt, and went over to the train station. There was a magazine, or not a magazine stand, but like a bookstore. And what he's talking about, I walked in, and in the United States, where they have like the pornographic magazines, they're up high where nobody can, where only a adult can reach them, and they're hidden. Nobody's going to buy a magazine. I'd be surprised if anybody during the daytime. They probably would, it's generally considered something embarrassing to do in the United States. But in this bookstore, I walk in and I look down, and there's the sex magazines all right there. I mean, there was a 5-year-old kid walking by me. I mean, everybody could see it, anybody could touch it, anybody could look at it. That was something that was kind of surprising to me.
Stores and gas stations. In nearly all of our grocery stores, right next to the checkout lines are racks of magazines, and there's always a porn section that is displayed right out and in the open for all to see who the latest cover girl of Playboy is. Or if we walk into any gas station, which we have discussed you must do in most cases in Germany to pay, unlike in the US, next to the door is nearly always a rack of porn magazines right in your face. Or in bookstores towards the end of the year, we will see them place racks outside of their doors with the next year's calendars, and a very common themed calendar is nude models. In contrast, in the US, if there are pornographic magazines for sale in a store.
Yeah, and you know, it's not even like that in the United States, what he has there, because it's usually up higher where you have to, you know, reach up to grab it if you want one of those things. And it's not something that people do in the open. It's just something they are like looking around, make sure nobody's looking at them, because they're very self-conscious about things like that. I was tempted to say just grab a magazine, go up there and buy it, and see what would happen. And I don't think anything would. The reason I did it because I figured, no, this is something that's normal. People like this stuff. Why not put it out there? Different culture.
Store, they are always covered up, or even may have an extra sleeve over them where you can only see the name of the magazine, but you won't see the nudity on the outside. So what is...
That's even assuming there is nudity. It's like not all Playboy magazines have nudity on the outside.
Surprising to me is that we talk about context, but this is normally a very obvious sexual natured medium of nudity, yet Germans have that out on display for all ages to see. So maybe I'm missing something with this, and if so, please feel free to try and explain this one to me in the comments.
Yeah, explain it to me as well. That is kind of different. I mean, it is what it is, but it is kind of different.
But to me, this does seem like an area of inconsistency with Germany's normal argument for nudity acceptance based on context. So again, I want to end this video by saying these are two very obvious different worldviews and perspectives that honestly, I don't think Americans and Germans will ever see eye to eye on, no matter how much we try to convince the other of them. But we need to appreciate the fact that we have different cultures that determine our worldviews. So maybe you feel there is a right and wrong, but that is just based on your cultural upbringing, which is different from the other. To see who made it this far into the video, the random question of the week is... Mesomix or Polliner Spezi? Thanks so much.
Well, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm not going to take a choice, but what he is correct. Okay, it's a different culture. I don't think we need to really explain all that. It's just a different culture. Okay, a different way of looking at it. And I don't know that there's a big German contingent trying to come to the United States and try and convince us otherwise, nor is there a big United States contingent going over to Germany to convince them otherwise. It's just the way they look at it. And again, like my personal opinion, I don't have a problem with it at all. Okay, it's a personal decision. I don't think we should be as Puritan over here as some people think we are, but I understand it as well. Okay, and I conform to it as it is. But this was a good video. I appreciate it. The shocking truth about Germans and nudity from Passport 2. Please click like, share, and subscribe for them. Please click like, share, and subscribe to me. And thanks for watching. I appreciate it.